Tonight, we log monsters. Fall asleep to a calm guide through every Silent Hill monster, origins, behaviors, and where they appear. Silent Hill and its inhabitants run on patterns. Learn them and you leave. When the siren starts, switch to survival mode. Assume every shadow matters. Groaner. First appearance, Silent Hill, 1999. You meet them early, trotting out of the fog on Silent Hill's streets and alleys. Thin, fast, and low to the ground, they work their residential grid and the business blocks the same way stray dogs would, cutting corners, circling, then committing to a straight line charge when you're in range. The radio warns first with a hard jump in static. What you hear next are short, rough barks and the slap of paws on wet pavement. They don't overcomplicate the attack. A quick run up and a lunge bite is the pattern, sometimes in pairs. The safest answer is space. Keep moving at an angle and don't let them square up on you. If you're armed, shots as the head comes up will knock them off the line. They show up across all three town districts in Silent Hill 1 and tend to thin out once the route pushes indoors. Later, a heavier variant called the Wormhead replaces them in the nightmare passes through Central and the resort. Same behavior, more damage, and a face that looks like it's swarmed by worms instead of skin. Guides describe the Wormhead as the Groaner's stronger counterpart, with the same jump bite window you can punish or simply outrun if you give yourself room. Air Screamer. First appearance, Silent Hill, 1999. You first see one slide past the window at Cafe 5 to 2. Just a shadow and a beat of wings, and then the radio jumps to life. A second later, it shatters the glass and comes straight for you. The game's first real fight, and the moment the radio proves what it's for. Outside, these things own the open blocks. Sudden drops into alleys, lazy circles over intersections until they line up another pass. The sound tells you before the model does. Harsh static, wing beats, and a knife-edge screech. And then the shape cuts through the fog. The attack is simple and mean. A diving bite or a rake that chains into another swoop if you stand still. Give them angles, a wide sidestep or a fast turn breaks the approach, and a couple of aim shots as the head rises will knock them out of the air. Most guides teach you to aim up and take them on at the start of the dive. If you don't need the street cleared, sprint and let the static fade. Burning ammo on a high, circling target isn't a restful way through town if you get what I mean. Later, the Night Flutter shows up in the nightmare passes through Central Silent Hill and the resort. It's the same silhouette made worse. Darker hide, a head wrapped in writhing worms, faster drops, harder hits. It lives where the metal shows through the walls, and the radio sings even louder when they stack in pairs above the docks. Same rules apply. Don't give them a straight line and punish the rise. Creeper, first appearance, Silent Hill, 1999. They're the big roaches that make hallways feel narrower, fast, low, and always a little earlier than your flashlight. In the first game, they turn up after the school shifts, then keep showing in the hospital and both sewer routes. You hear the chitter first and see a smear of yellow-red shell skitter across the tile. One creeper is a nip at your ankle. 3 at once turns a corridor into bad footing. The radio spikes. But the better tell is the dry, scraping pattern against the floor and the baseboards. They rush straight to your legs and loop around for another bite if you stand still. The simple counter is motion. Keep walking and angle past them, or snap short, handgun burst downward and they close. Guides for the original specifically recommend the handgun over the melee, cleaner hits, less stumble. They don't stay in 1999. Silent Hill 2 reuses them in apartments, the historical society, and the prison wing, where they swarm around Maria and later clog tight rooms in numbers. The remake adds a locked bug room that fills with creepers, which turns the roaches from background pressure into a timed hazard. Either way, the behavior holds. Small damage alone, dangerous as a group, and most safely handled by moving through them rather than trying to clear every last one. Larval Stalker, first appearance, Silent Hill, 1999. They show up when the school turns. Small, human-shaped shadows that pad along the floor just ahead of your light. In the corridors of Otherworld Midwich, they drift out from under lockers and around door frames. They fade as if they forgot to exist. Later, you can catch them at the edges of other nightmare spaces, skimming past benches and thresholds like heat mirages. The radio does crackle, but it's a thin, distant hiss compared to the real threats. What you actually hear is soft skittering and the faintest little creak of feet that never quite touch. They don't hurt you. Swinging or shooting goes straight through, and they don't try to grab or block hallways. Their presence is a mood piece, evidence that the building still remembers smaller footsteps. The safest move is to do nothing at all. Keep a steady walking pace, let them pass, and save the ammo and attention for anything with mass. If one lines up in your path, angle a step, and it will peel off, as if the idea of you moving broke its nerve. Much later, the harmless outline gets a hostile counterpart in Nowhere. Stalkers. They appear almost invisible, knife-wielding versions of the same silhouette that do make contact. Those are threats. These earlier shadows are not. They're the sound of the place getting ready. Gray Child / Mumbler. First appearance, Silent Hill, 1999. In the school, shapes the size of kids step out of your flashlight and close the gap with a knife hand held low. In the North American version, there are the Gray Children, thin, gray, hooded, and unmistakably childlike, while the Japanese release replaces them with Mumblers, stockier creatures with a snout and clawed hands. Either way, the halls of the Midwich Elementary are where they make their point. You hear a small, ragged rasp, and the radio lifts into a nervous hiss before you see them. One comes on steady. Two fan out and try to catch your hips as you back up. The safe move is control. Keep the beam centered. Let one commit, then fire as the arm comes up. If you want to keep your pace for the puzzle route, a fast sidestep and a straight walk past their shoulders gets you through without spinning around. In versions with mumblers, they hit harder and show up in more places, especially the sewers. That regional split is logged in long-running guides and bestiaries. Gray Children in the U.S. school, mumblers in the Japanese, with the mumblers also appearing in the tunnels elsewhere. Puppet Nurse, first appearance, Silent Hill, 1999. They start showing up as soon as Alchemila turns, shoulders hunched by the slug-like parasite riding their spine. In the narrow ward halls, they move with that stuttering marionette gait, head down, cardigan or uniform torn, a scalpel flashing when they close. The radio's hiss gets sharp in hospital corridors, but the closer tell is the wet, labored breathing that floats ahead of them, like someone trying to swallow between steps. One will track you slowly until the distance feels small, then rush for a grab or a quick slash. Two will drift from opposite angles and try to hem you against doors that don't open. Keep them in your beam and don't let them stack. Backpedal on a straight line, squeeze a few handgun shots as the arm raises, and the body will pitch forward before it can hook you. If you'd rather not fire, keep a steady walking pace and brush the wall. They're easy to slip by if you don't panic in the doorway. The parasite isn't set dressing. In-series material identifies it as the same organism that later takes Sybil Bennett at the amusement park. And the game makes a point of showing that Aglaophytis breaks its control there. In Alchemilla you don't get a cure. Only the reminder that nurses were people first, with something alive and separate moving on its own across their back as you pass. Puppet Doctor, first appearance, Silent Hill, 1999. They show up in the Otherworld Alchemilla, usually after the hospital flips. White coat, shirt, and tie, head bent low under the parasite riding their spine. They move with the same stop-start pull you see in the nurses, but hit harder. The radio thickens into a harsh static, and a heavy, labored groan carries down the corridor before you see the silhouette. Up close, they don't posture. They grab and slash with a knife and try to keep you pinned against the door that won't open. Space is the answer. Keep the beam on the chest. Back straight down the hallway and fire as the arms come up. If you want it quiet, slip past along the wall while they commit to the reach. They are slower than the nurses and easier to outpace once they whiff. Some routes even recommend blunt force in tight halls. The hammer or well-timed shotgun push because they stagger cleanly when you challenge them instead of letting them close. They're built on the same rule as the nurses. In-series materials link the slug-like parasite to the one that later takes Sybil, and the hospital fights underline by showing the mass on their backs move on its own when the host drops. Puppet doctors are rare spawns, but when they appear, they tell you exactly where you are in the run, deep in Alchemilla's nightmare floors, where staff uniforms and scalpels are still active, but working for something else. Romper, first appearance, Silent Hill, 1999. You start seeing them once the town opens past a school, tall, hunch-shaped pacing the sidewalks in Central, and then thick along the resort blocks. They move like a man-sized baboon, shoulders high and head low, and when they finally commit, it's not a swing. It's a full-body tackle that carries you off your feet and into the pavement. The radio gives a rough, constant hiss around them, but the real tell is the short, harsh bark they make just before they break into that sprint. One romper is a road hazard, but you can route around. Two working corner will bracket you and force a bad trade if you hesitate in a doorway. Distance is everything. Keep your line wide. Don't let them square their shoulders, and be ready to change directions the moment you hear that bark. If you want them down, the shotgun stops the charge cleanly when you fire as the chest rises. The handgun works, but only if you start early. They show up in both fog and nightmare passes, and the street near the lake can stack them in pairs, which is why most old routes tell you to stick to open curbs and avoid tight alleys. They're not complicated enemies, just speed and mass aimed straight at you, and that's enough to make an empty block feel like it's suddenly too small. Hanged Scratcher, first appearance, Silent Hill, 1999. They live in the tunnels under town. The first time the ladder drops you into the sewers, the radio wakes up, and the ceiling starts to whisper. Dry clicks and a faint drag like hooks on concrete. Shine the light up and you'll catch them clinging to the pipework, long arms hooked overhead, legs folded like mantis. They wait until you're under them, then drop and rake across your path, quick enough to turn a straight hallway into a bad idea. The safest way is to keep moving and control angles. If you lift your view early, you can pick them off before they fall. Guides even know you can spot them on the roof of the tunnel and shoot them down from a distance once you know to look up. Both sewer runs use them the same way. first on the way to the resort and later on the route that connects to the amusement park. They're never out in the streets, only down here with the wet concrete and the sound of water under the grates. Item routes place a desk nook and map room near their patrols, which is why you hear the radio climb just as you reach a safe point or a key door. The fandom calls them sewer demons for a reason. The official bestiaries stick with hang scratchers and keep their home fixed to these tunnels. Bloodsucker. First appearance, Silent Hill, 1999. You find it in Alchemilla after the hospital turns, fixed to the back wall of room 204 like a bundle of hoses that learn to breathe. The floor smeared dark beneath it, and the sound carries down the hall before you step in, a wet, patient slurping with little hisses through the tubing. It doesn't chase, it waits, feeding, and only comes alive when you reach the square plate mounted beside it. The tendril snaps out fast enough to knock you back from the wall, then settles as if nothing moved at all. The room teaches a different kind of answer. Somewhere upstairs in storage sits a blood pack, cold and heavy in your hand. Set it down on the floor, and the mass shifts towards the new source, every tube leaning that way at once. The wall clears, the plate comes free, and the thing keeps drinking without caring that you are 2 steps away. There's no reason to swing or shoot. It isn't a fight so much as a habit you had to redirect. When you leave, the feeding noises fade into the corridor hum, and the hospital goes back to sounding like a building that's still working, even when nothing inside should be. Split Head. First appearance, Silent Hill, 1999. The boiler room is already too hot when the door locks and the thing pulls itself out of the dark. It's all jaw, 2 plates meeting in a long seam that opens the way a paper cut opens, too wide and too fast. You hear it before you get a clean look, a wet drag across metal and a dull, chesty growl that makes the pipes rattle. It doesn't think much of the walls. It takes broad and pushing steps that herd you around the furnace housing, then snaps sideways with the whole mouth, trying to pin you in a corner. The rhythm is simple. Once you stop staring at the split, it advances. The seam pries open, and there's a half second where the tongue and the palate show. That's the window. Shots into the open mouth stagger it. Anything fired early just hits shell and makes it angrier. Keep circling, don't back straight into the brick, and punish only when it commits to the bite. You can hear the breath change right before it does. It's the series' first boss, and it sets the rule Silent Hill keeps using. The way out of a nightmare space is through something that was already here. When it falls, the heat drops, the room stops humming, and the world snaps back to the school you recognize, as if the building exhaled and let you go. Twin Feeler. First appearance, Silent Hill, 1999. It shows up under the mall lights like a bad idea that finally found a floor to break. You cut through the town center and drop into Mellow Gates gun shop. The room is all glass cases and a long counter, and the wood starts to rumble. The floor pushes up in 2 lines, and larva erupts, a pale worm with red segments that whips its body around the displays. The doors seal, and the path becomes a circle. It travels mostly underground, surfacing in lunges that try to catch you against the shop front. You hear the run coming as a low scrape and feel the bump just before it breaks the tile. When it rises, it holds for a beat, enough time to plant your feet and fire. There's a hunting rifle lying in this very room if you want it, but the shotgun is cleaner at the distance the arena forces. Stay moving, listen for the line, and punish the breach. After enough hits, it curls, then smashes through the closed doors on the way out, leaving the exit open and the counter half toppled behind you. It isn't dead, though. Later, the larva shape hardens into wings and a stinger and takes flight to the post office roof across Alchemilla. Guides fix the second form as Float Stinger, a giant moth that spits and dives until it finally falls. When it does, the siren stops arguing and Central slides back towards Fog. The game treats both appearances as one thing growing between encounters. Worm in the shop, moth on the roof. Same muscles learning a new way to hurt you. Float Stinger, first appearance, Silent Hill, 1999. You climb to the top of the post office roof across from Alchemilla, and the radio spikes before the shape even clears the mist. The giant moth rides the wind just above the rail, drifting wide, then slashing across the roofline to rake you with its body and spit poisonous spray. Keep your feet moving and watch the height changes. The safe window is when it levels off to line up for another pass. The shotgun will stagger it if you fire as the torso fills the frame. The hunting rifle works too if you can buy the second it needs to cycle. Old guides warn that shooting too fast wastes rounds against its invulnerability beats, so let it settle and make the shots count. The arena is small, the fall is near, and the radio only quiets when the wings finally fold. It isn't a new monster so much as a grown one. The larval twin feeler you fought in the town center hardens into the adult form, trading the floor-breaking charges for airspace and reach. Killing the Float Stinger resolves Central's Nightmare Pass. Sources consistently note that the death is the beat that eases the town back towards Fog before you push on to the waterworks and the sewer route out of the district. Same creature, different stage of the same problem. First under your boots in the gun shop, then above your head on a roof, both tied to the way Silent Hill opens and closes its streets. Wormhead, first appearance, Silent Hill, 1999. They replace the street dogs when the town hardens. Same lean body as the groaner, but the face looks like it was left in the ground too long. Skin gone, worms working in and out of the muzzle. You find them on the nightmare passes through central Silent Hill and the resort blocks, pacing the curbs and drifting towards intersections where 2 or 3 can hem you in. The radio's hiss is thicker around them, and the bark has a torn, wet edge, like something caught in the throat. They attack the same way as their earlier cousins, with a straight-line rush into a bite that can chain if you freeze. But they hit harder and recover quicker. Give them space, never back straight down a street, and cut your angle the moment the shoulder lifts. If you want them on the pavement, a shotgun blast as the head comes up ends the charge cleanly. They are never clever, just determined, and in pairs they make empty blocks feel hostile in a way that the groaners never quite managed. Night Flutter, first appearance, Silent Hill, 1999. They replace the day flyers once the street turns. Same long wings and hooked torso as the air screamer, but darker, faster, and meaner, with the head wrapped in something that looks like living rot. You find them circling above Otherworld, central Silent Hill, and the resort blocks, riding the wind off the lake and dropping hard into alleys where the railings are low. The warnings come in layers, radio static first, then a ragged, higher screech that cuts over the hum of the town. They like height, they drift just out of reach, tip a wing to line you up, then knife across the roofline and try to take you off your feet with a raking pass. If you stand still, they loop and do it again from the opposite direction. The counter is timing and angles. Keep moving so they never get a clean line. When one flattens out to commit, plant for half a second and fire at the torso. A close shotgun blast staggers them out of the air, and a handgun works if you catch the rise. Don't chase, let them come to you. Punish the level pass and resume motion before the next swoop. In pairs they own the docks and the boardwalk edges, turning open spaces into a place where you always feel 2 steps behind. They aren't puzzle gates and they don't guard items. They exist to make a normal street feel exposed. A reminder that Silent Hill's sky is hostile too. Stalker, first appearance, Silent Hill, 1999. They don't announce themselves the way the school's shadows do. In Nowhere, a figure steps out of the dark at adult height, knife in hand, and the radio hisses like a bad station you can't quite tune away. What you're seeing is the mature form of the larval stalker, no longer a harmless silhouette, but a near invisible assailant that reads like a gray child made of smoke. The outline flickers at the edge of your beam, then closes the last few feet with a quick lunge. If you wait to confirm the shape, you waited too long. The safe approach is to keep moving, hold the light steady, and answer the first commitment with a short, centered burst. They aren't thick on the ground, but the spaces where they appear are narrow, so a single miss can turn into a corner you don't control. The trick is not to chase the shimmer. Give yourself a straight line, listen for the scrape and the breath, and fire into the moment the body stops being a suggestion. Canon sources describe them as the grown version of the harmless school ghosts, and treat their debut in Nowhere as the point where the quiet foreshadowing finally turns into a real blade. Incubus, first appearance, Silent Hill, 1999. In Nowhere's chapel, the air turns red and the floor sigil wakes. If you've rescued Kaufman, he storms in and whips a vial of Aglafotis at Elisa. The liquid boils on her back, and the god inside tears free. The thing hangs in the air like a burning angel, and the room shrinks to a circle around it. It doesn't pace or chase. It calls lighting. Red forks that smash the floor in fast volleys. The radio is already screaming, but the real cue is a harsh triple click before the first strike. The safe rhythm is old and simple. Keep moving, carve a wide circle until the bolts quit, plant for a heartbeat, and work the hunting rifle into its chest. If you get greedy, the next volley starts on top of you, and the stuns chain. Heal to full the moment you're clipped, and you'll survive the rest of the burst. This is the good/good plus final boss. In the bad routes, the radiant incubator stands in its place and fights with the same lighting pattern but dies quicker. Either way, the fight reads the same on the ground: a fixed center, an arena that punishes standing still, and a god that only cedes an opening between storms. When it finally falls, the room lets go. In the better endings, Elisa's last gift is waiting by the door. Incubator, first appearance, Silent Hill, 1999. If Kaufman never throws Aglaophytus in the chapel, the god doesn't rip free. The figure that steps into the circle is bright, still, and almost gentle. Incubator, a radiant version of Elise that floats above the sigil like a candle flame held in place. The room goes quiet except for the hum in the walls. It doesn't chase. It holds the center and answers your presence with short volleys of lightning that strike where you're standing, a heartbeat after a sharp electric click. The pattern is simple, but unforgiving if you plant. Walk the perimeter, wait for a volley to end, and take your shots while the glow steadies. The hunting rifle makes those windows count. The handgun works if your timing is clean and you don't stand still between the bursts. Get greedy and you'll eat a second strike before you're recovered. Compared to Incubus, this fight feels like an echo. Same arena, same thunder-only voice, fewer hits to finish it. The danger is complacency, not aggression. Keep the circle, keep the rhythm, and work the center only when the light holds still. When it fades, the chapel loses its heat, and hum drops back to silence. The ending that follows this version aren't kind, but on the floor they play the same way, a fixed target, punishing openings, and a final quiet that lands harder than any victory music. Lying Figure. First appearance, Silent Hill 2. You meet the first one on the roadside after the woods, when the radio finally starts earning its keep. It lurches out of the fog wrapped in its own skin like a vinyl straitjacket. Arms pinned inside, head pushing at the seam. The sound is wet, muffled wheeze, punctuated by a rubbery creak every time the body twists. It doesn't rush. It drifts towards you on uncertain feet, then snaps its torso open and spits a caustic spray from the chest slit. That's the real threat. Medium range, fast, and accurate enough to tag you if you plant too long. Keep moving and give it diagonals. If you stay outside the first spit, you can circle and tag the side of the torso with quick handgun shots. The stagger is reliable when you fire as it starts to bow forward. If you're conserving bullets, the steel pipe works as long as you commit to a clean sidestep and swing on the recovery. Don't stand in front waiting to trade. Indoors, they make narrow halls feel narrower, leaning into door frames and trying to trap you against bad angles. Outdoors, they wander in twos along Nathan Avenue and between the apartments. The radio's hiss turns sharp right before the spray, so read the noise, move first, and make the miss before you answer. Mannequin, first appearance, Silent Hill 2, 2001. You meet one in the dark of Woodside 205. A mannequin in Mary's clothes holds the flashlight. The moment you take it, something asleep behind the dummy stands up on two pairs of legs, and the room changes temperature. They're quiet until they aren't. Cloth rub, a fast shuffle, and then a sudden brutal kick from those doubled limbs. They like corners and door frames, standing still until you step close and put light on them. Once they commit, they lunge, recover quickly, and try to box you in with another strike. The safe answer is movement and timing. Don't stare them down in a doorway. Take a step past the hip and fire as they turn, or keep walking and let the radio settle on its own. In apartments, they cluster near loot and puzzle rooms. Later, you'll see them in Brookhaven and the hotel, where cramped angles make them feel faster than they actually are. The game nails their place in the story with Room 307. James hides in a closet while Pyramid Head manhandles two mannequins, killing one and dragging the other. That scene fixes them in the world, targets of the executioner, and a threat that wakes in your light. Bubblehead Nurse, first appearance, Silent Hill 2, 2001. Brookhaven's halls announce them before you turn the corner. Hard heel clicks under the fluorescent hum, a wet, breathy moan that sounds like someone trying to inhale through gauze. When a nurse shambles into your beam, she jerks towards the light, head wrapped and tilted, chest heaving, a steel pipe clenched low. Alone she drifts and snaps into a fast chopping combo and can stun lock you if you freeze in a doorway. In pairs they fan slightly, forcing you to give ground until your back hits a locked door. Keep the angles, walk, don't panic, run. Slide past a shoulder and fire as the torso turns, which staggers her cleanly. If you're conserving rounds, the steel pipe works with a committed sidestep and a quick strike on her whiff, but the shotgun is a reliable answer when too crowded a narrow hall. They rarely leave the ward floors. Brookhaven and its otherworld version are their territory. The radio's hiss here is almost constant because something is always a few rooms away. What sells them isn't the hit, it's the way the body moves and stutters, as if someone else were tugging the strings. When one drops, the pipe rings once on the tile, the breath stops, and the corridor goes back to a buzzing until the next pair turns the corner. Mandarin, first appearance, Silent Hill 2, 2001. You hear them long before you see them, metal scraping under your feet, a rattling drag that runs the length of the catwalk. Then a face lifts through the grid, mouth stitched into a ragged grin, while two long arms wind up like cables being reeled. Mandarins live under grading, stalking the walkways that bridge construction gaps and service shafts. They don't climb up to your level. They lunge from below, hands lashing through the mesh to hook your legs and yank you off balance. The radio's hiss gets thin and bright directly over them, a nervous whine that holds steady as they pace your path from beneath. Panic makes people stomp in place and swing at air. Don't. Keep a measured walk. Give the railing a little room and watch the pattern in the grate. The silhouette tracks with you and telegraphs the grab with a quick, coiling pull. If you want them gone, stop just out of their reach and put a handgun shot straight down through the mesh as the head rises. They stagger easily when you hit during that lift. It's not a heart fight as much as a bad footing problem. Treat the floor like a thin lid and the space below like a hostile hallway, and the scraping fades behind you as you step off the metal and onto something solid again. Flesh Lips, first appearance, Silent Hill 2, 2001. Brookhaven goes quiet just before the ceiling lowers. The frame comes down on cables, a pale shape hooded, long legs twitching as if waking from anesthesia. It hangs there and breathes, wet, labored, the kind of sound that carries through metal, and then the legs snap down and hook for your throat. The grab is the danger. If it lifts you, the choke drags on and your input turns to static. Keep moving and don't stand under the shadow. The safe rhythm is to circle, wait for the drop, and answer from the side with a quick shotgun blast. The handgun works if you buy yourself space, but swing up close invites the clamp. When it recoils, it rises and paces overhead, the straps creaking while you reset your angle. The radio doesn't help much here. Everything is close, so read the legs, not the hiss. The room doesn't empty after one. Another frame descends from the dark, same breath, same reach, as if the place were stocked with the same patient 3 times. You can see the hospital as every piece of it. Gauze, restraints, those long, clinical limbs doing the work of hands. When the last one drops for good, the noise dies with it. Doors that wouldn't move a minute ago open like they should, and the ward stops feeling like it's trying to pull you up into the ceiling. Abstract Daddy, first appearance, Silent Hill 2, 2001. Down in the labyrinth, a low room opens, a metal frame jutting from one wall like a bed someone tried to weld shut. The radio is already angry when it crawls out. 2 bodies jammed together under a slick membrane, one on top, one beneath. Limbs working in slow, awful pushes. It moves with weight, dragging itself across the floor on its arms. Then rears and presses forward to smother, pinning you against the frame or the wall if you give it a straight line. The sound is the worst part. Thick breathing, wet cloth peeling, a strain that doesn't stop when you step back. Don't let it square up. Keep a tight circle. Make it turn. When it lifts, there's the tell. Its bulk hesitates. The head plate lifts, and that's when you put a shotgun blast into the upper mass. The hunting rifle works if you could buy yourself a second. Melee gets you grabbed and dragged, so only try it if you made it whiff hard. If it closes, break sideways, not back. The room is small, and a straight retreat hands it the pin. After the fight, the door you couldn't open finally gives, and Angela steps into the room. The shape on the floor is hers, not yours, and you understand why the bed was part of the monster. Later, on the burning stairway, that same form returns for her again, unchanged by anything you did here. Red pyramid thing, aka Pyramid Head, First appearance, Silent Hill 2, 2001. You hear him before you name him. Somewhere in the apartments, metal drags across concrete in a sound that makes your teeth ache, then stops as if whoever is holding the blade is listening too. The first time you really see him, you're hiding in a closet in room 307 while he grips two mannequins and does something that isn't killing so much as punishing. The helmet is a wedge of rusted iron. The body is a butcher's bulk, and the weapon is a slab of steel that looks like it belongs to a ship, not a person. He turns and the room shrinks without moving a wall. He doesn't rush. He advances the way a verdict does, steady and inevitable. And when he swings that great knife, the air bends before the edge arrives. In the apartment fight, water crawls up the stairwell, and he wades in it like it weighs nothing. You can hurt him, but you don't end him. The battle finishes when he decides it does, and he leaves, heavy footsteps down the flooded dark. Later, he's on Brookhaven's roof, and the meeting is a shove that sends you over the side. Later still, deep beneath town, there are two of him in a long, echoing room, each carrying a spear. The only way that encounter resolves is when they drive their own weapons through themselves and fade as if their job is finished. There's a canvas in the Historical Society called Misty Day Remains of the Judgment. Hooded executioners standing over bodies, spears raised. He looks like the town's memory of that painting learning to walk. Wherever he goes, the scrape of metal keeps pace with your breathing, and doors you just closed don't feel like doors anymore. Prisoner, Unseen. First appearance, Silent Hill 2, 2001. In Toluca Prison, a voice works the length of a tear, low and repetitive, like someone mumbling to the wall between breaths. You can't see it through the bars. You can't bait it to a window. You just walk the row and hear the same line roll over itself while the empty cells throw a sound back. The radio doesn't help here, it stays quiet, which is why most players try to spot a spawn they never will. That silent is part of the trick. Official materials still classify the voice as a monster even without the radio's warning, and the effect is the same as anybody in the hall. You slow down, you stare into a room that won't give you a target. The prison gets bigger by a few more steps. Nothing opens because of it, and nothing drops when you wait it out. The sound keeps its distance, no matter where you stand, as if the cell were deeper than the building. Over the years, people have tried to parse the words or pin the voice to a known figure, but in play, it's simpler than that. It's a presence that never shows itself, a reminder that this block has more mouths than faces, and not every threat in Silent Hill announces itself with static. Mary/Maria, first appearance, Silent Hill 2, 2001. At the top of the lake view, after the hotel turns, the room looks almost calm. High ceilings, the sound of air moving through the ruined vents. And then she changes. The figure at the window twists into a body cradled by a metal frame, limbs thinned into grasping strands, voice rising into a ragged call that doesn't sound like breath anymore. She doesn't chase, she controls space, lashing out from the frame with quick swipes and long pokes that punish you for standing still. When she drifts higher, sparks tick along the ceiling rails, and the frame drops hard to smash the floor before climbing again. Close-range swings are a trap. The safe rhythm is distance and angles. Circle, wait for the tell, frame settling, limbs stretching, and answer with careful shots. Old hands save the rifle and shotgun for this encounter. The handgun works if you protect your space and don't rush your pulls. The fight ends the story last pretense. The form is a cousin to the flesh lips rig you saw in Brookhaven. Another body hung, restrained, speaking in a voice that asks you to stop only after it's already broken the distance. When she finally slumps from the frame, the door goes very quiet, depending on what choices brought you here. The name on this thing is different. Some routes call it Maria, some call Mary, but the arena and pattern are the same. A mixed center, punishing reach, and small openings between shocks where you steady your hands and finish it. Closer, first appearance, Silent Hill 3, 2003. It's the first real body Heather meets when the dream ends. A broad shape in a mall boutique, bent over a woman's corpse, lifting its shoulders like it's listening. The arms are everything, two massive clubs that swing and thrust to keep you at distance, sometimes splitting to show a short blade hidden in the meat. It doesn't hurry. It soaks space, turning on its heel with a slow, deliberate pivot, waiting for you to give it the side of your ribs. The sound is a low, wet groan under the mall's air fans, and the radio holds a steady hiss that doesn't spike until you crowd it. The safe way through is patience. Circle just outside the arc, let the arm extend, and punish the recovery with controlled shots. Handgun bursts stagger it when you catch the turn. The shotgun ends the conversation if you have room to plant your feet. Later, out on the streets and in service corridors, it's the same slow pressure. Big swings, obvious tells, and enough bulk to make a normal hallway feel one size too small. Official guides call out how telegraphed its thrust really is, and every route that lists weapons puts shotgun at the top for this one. It's not a puzzle. It's a metronome with bones, and you beat it by keeping time. Numb Body, first appearance, Silent Hill 3, 2003. They wobble into view like something half-grown, pale, tadpole-smooth skin split with cracks, two stumpy legs, a single dark hole where a face should be. You meet them in the Central Square shopping center, then again in the underpass and Hilltop Center, sometimes alone, more often in small herds that try to pen you in. The sound is a soft, regular moan that loops until you touch them. When you do, it breaks into high, infant-like cries and frantic flailing that makes the whole corridor feel narrower. Small ones bump and hop to close distance, then ram the head straight into your waist. Bigger ones show up later, most memorably on the moving Hazel Street subway car, hitting harder and taking longer to drop. When a large one finally dies, it sags and deflates, a gross little exhale that tells you it's actually done. They're not clever, just persistent, and they multiply the moment you stall. The safe play is to keep a steady walk and cut wide around the group, or put quick handgun bursts into the lead body as it lines up the bump. Old rote notes warn against showy melee here. The stagger is there, but the wind-up leaves you surrounded. Treat them like rolling obstacles. Listen for the moan, watch the hop, and don't let three of them stand shoulder to shoulder in front of a door you need. Double Head, first appearance, Silent Hill 3, 2003. You catch the shape on the street first, long, low, and too smooth, then the head opens, along the middle, like a zipper. It's a dog in outline only, two jaw plates that clap instead of bite, a wet, rasping breath that echoes in shop front glass, and claws that chatter on tile when it breaks into a run. After the mall, they start working the outdoor blocks, the subway platforms, and the service corridors in Hilltop Center, drifting at the edge of your light until the angle feels wrong, and then committing to a fast, shoulder-high lunge. If you freeze, they'll catch your hip and worry the seam open, shaking hard enough that you hear it over the radio. The safe answer is old and reliable, movement and timing. Keep a sidestep ready, let the body sail past, and answer with two or three clean handgun shots while it turns. The shotgun ends an approach instantly if you plant and fire as the jaw plates rise. Don't get greedy with swings because the recovery is when the second bite lands. They're food motivated in a way nothing else here is. A tossed beef jerky packet will pull one off a doorway and keep it busy long enough to slip by, and even in pairs, the lure buys you space. The game teaches that quietly. You find jerky in places where the dogs patrol. Use it when you want quiet, and keep walking when you hear the claws catch up behind you. Pendulum. First appearance. Silent Hill 3, 2003. Out on the street, the radio thins to a high, nervous whine, and then you hear the metal, a harsh, rotary shriek that seems to skate across the air before the thing even breaks the fog. The pendulum hangs there like two torsos, bolted back to back, blades for legs, head at both ends. It doesn't walk. It hovers, swings, and scissors past you with a buzzing cut, then loops for another pass. You first meet them outside the Central Square shopping center, and they keep turning up in open spaces, lakeside amusement park sightlines, chapel approaches, anywhere the game can give them room to arc around you. The sound is the tell. Once you've heard it, you start checking the sky before you check corners. They're less dangerous than they are disruptive. Stand still, and they'll keep carving the same line through your space. Run smart, and they miss, overshoot, and waste their own momentum. If you need the area clear, plant for a heartbeat and fire as the body levels off. Handgun bursts will stagger them mid-swing, and a shotgun blast at close range ends the pass altogether. Most routes recommend simply keeping your angle and moving on, because they track poorly through doorways and lose you the moment you break line of sight. Treat the scream like a weather report. Something sharp is crossing the block, and you'll sleep better if you don't stand under it. Insane Cancer. First appearance. Silent Hill 3, 2003. You hear it before you commit to the doorway, a wet, labored breathing that fills the room like a generator with bad bearings. The shape is all mass. Pale folds, tiny head sunk into a swollen chest. Standing in service corridors, hospital wards, the underpass, anywhere the game can make the air feel stale. It shuffles until you crowd it. Then the whole body comes forward in a sudden body slam that takes your feet out from under you and pins you to walls that were safe a second ago if you try to trade up close. It soaks the hit and answers with another shove. The radio stays hot the entire time because distance doesn't fix the pressure. Only space does. Keep moving, force it to turn, and punish the pivot with short, controlled bursts. The shotgun is honest work here. One or two blasts to the upper mass stagger it long enough to slide by, while the handgun will do the job if you stay disciplined and don't chase. Melee is a trap unless you've already made it whiff and bought yourself a clean window. It has a tell on death. The first collapse isn't the end. It sags, goes still, then lurches back up if you stand there waiting for loot that doesn't exist. When it finally dies, it deflates, a soft, collapsing exhale that's impossible to mistake once you've heard it. That sound is your green light. Until then, treat the room like it still belongs to the big thing breathing in it. Slurper. First appearance. Silent Hill 3, 2003. They live in the gaps, the underside of desks, the shadow under a gurney, the dark space between shelving and floor. You start meeting them after the mall in tight interiors, the underpass service rooms, the office floors of Hilltop Center, and later in the hospital, where handrails and table legs give them cover. The sound announces them before the shape does. A wet, insecty slurp mixed with quick hand and knee scrapes on tile They stay low until you give them a clean angle, then rush the shins to knock you off your feet, swarming in two so the second one hits while you're standing back up. If you stop to swing, they pin you against furniture. If you run blind, they cut across your path from under a table you didn't check. Keep the light steady and control the lane. A short back step makes the first charge miss. Answer that whiff with quick handgun bursts down into the back and shoulders, or plant once and let a shotgun blast end the approach. Walking beats sprinting here. Their ambush loses teeth if you don't give them a straight line. And doors are allies because they track poorly across thresholds. When one drops, don't linger. Some spring back up after a beat if you're standing over them. The rooms they choose tell you how they hunt. Low, close, and mean, turning ordinary furniture into cover, and your legs into the only target they care about. Nurse SH3. First appearance, Silent Hill 3, 2003. Brookhaven's doors open and the hall breathes before anything steps into the light. Heavy panting, shoes tapping under the fluorescence. Then a figure hunched at the shoulders with a rapt face and bad posture. These nurses don't wander the streets. They live in Brookhaven, and the building carries their sound room to room. Up close, they swing steel pipes in short, ugly chops that stun if you let a doorway box you in. Farther out, some of them lift a revolver and fire down the corridor with no warning at all. The radio is constant here, so read the body instead of the hiss. If a hand comes up and the arm straightens, it's the gun. Close distance immediately and break the shot. If the weight shifts forward, it's the pipe. Sidestep, punish, and keep moving. Guides call out a simple rule that holds. In the normal hospital, you can manage them with handgun bursts and footwork. In the Nightmare Pass, the gun carriers deserve the first shot the instant they raise their arms. They have small tells you can use. Revolver nurses will pistol whip if you rush them before they fire, turning a ranged threat into a clumsy close-range swing you can answer cleanly. Perfume makes everything worse. Equip it and you'll draw more of them, faster, in Brookhaven's narrow halls. The safest rhythm stays the same. Don't plant your feet in a doorway, don't let two of them fan you toward a dead end, and fire on the motion that gives you the most space afterward. When they drop, the room goes back to the hum of lights and that steady panting 2 doors away, like the hospital itself is catching its breath. Scraper. First appearance, Silent Hill 3, 2003. They wait until the end. When the chapel opens and the halls go long and quiet, you'll hear them before the radio catches up, metal scraping on metal, a steady, nervous rasp as twin blades rub together while the figure paces a corner. The robe is the same rough brown you see on the Order's faithful, head hooded, arms sheathed in something that looks more like tools than limbs. When they commit, they close fast with blades that chop and thrust in short, punishing strings. The safe answer is to refuse the corner, step out wide, let the first swing miss, and put controlled fire into the torso before they reset. If you need them gone quickly, a shotgun blast during their lunge stops the rush. Handgun works if you keep your feet and don't chase. In pairs, they like to appear at right angles to each other, turning a church hallway into a crossfire of blades that will catch you if you plant in a doorway. Treat the scrape like a metronome. Count the steps, take the angle, and hit the opening between sounds. Their home ground is the Order's chapel at the end of the run, and guides call out how often they seem to spawn right behind you, around blind corners in those last corridors. Split Worm, first appearance, Silent Hill 3, 2003. Down in the mall's ground floor, the tiles shudder, and a pale, segmented body tears the floor open. It rears from one of the wall tunnels, mouth splitting like a paper cut across the whole face, holding still just long enough to show the soft inside before it snaps shut and dives. The tell is a low scrape through the vents and a bump underfoot an instant before it breaches. Keep moving. Watch the tunnel mouths and take the opening when it hangs there with the jaws spread. Clean handgun bursts land reliably in that window. The shotgun deletes the moment if you're close enough to plant your feet. When it misses, it dives and resurfaces from another tunnel, trying to herd you into a bad corner with the next lunge. Kill it, and the mall exhales. Lights steady, doors give, and Heather heads for the subway, as if waking from a long blink. Missionary, first appearance, Silent Hill, 2003. You come home to the door hanging open and the room too quiet. The thing in the hall wears a long coat and moves like it's hiding inside someone it borrowed. When it turns, you see the arms, long, flattened bones capped with blades, held close like shields until it lunges. The sound is a mix of fabric drag and metal flex, as if the coat itself were straining to hold the shape together. It covers ground in quick bursts, stabbing for the chest, then snapping its forearms up to guard the front of the body. Face it head on and most shots chew the coat. Try to trade up close and you'll get chopped into the wallpaper. The safe rhythm is mid-range and angles. Keep it circling furniture, bait the rush, and punish while it's committing. When the arms extend, the guard drops, and bullets land clean. If you can slip behind it for half a heartbeat, the back takes damage without the forearm plates soaking it. The shotgun is the apartment answer, short patterned blasts that stop its line and buy you room to reset. The handgun works if your feet are steady and you don't chase. When it finally folds, the coat collapses with it, and the hallway feels smaller than it did a minute ago. You'll see the type again later as the orders blade-armed enforcers. But this first one tells you what they're for, killing quickly, up close, in rooms that used to be safe. Leonard Wolf, first appearance, Silent Hill 3, 2003. The first time you hear him, it's over a hospital intercom that shouldn't be working, calm, paternal, and wrong. Down in Brookhaven's depths, the hall opens into a round, shallow pool, and something pale moves under the surface like a drowned man who forgot to stop walking. Leonard rises with a slow heave, water sheeted over a long torso, hands too big and too clean. He talks as if you're someone he owns, then dives again, circling so close to the floor that the ripples hammer the grates at your ankles. When he commits, he explodes out of the water in a straight line, arms wide to grab and drag, or he sweeps his reach low to knock your legs out, so the next rush lands with your back turned. The room makes it worse. No corners, nothing to hide behind, only a ring of shallow water, and your timing. Keep moving. Listen for the swell, and watch the surface, not the walls. When the shape bulges toward you, sidestep first and fire second. Shotgun blasts during his lunge will stagger him hard and keep you upright, while the handgun buys space if you're disciplined about short bursts. If he disappears, don't plant your feet hunting for a lock. Walk the circumference and wait him out. He'll break the surface again with the same tell every time. When he finally stops moving, the water stills, and the voice stops pretending to be kind. He had something you needed, the sealed talisman of Metatron clutched like proof of his own righteousness, and when you take it, the hospital feels emptier, as if the building itself was listening to him and has nothing left to say now. Memory of Alessa, first appearance, Silent Hill 3, 2003. On the happy carousel, the air goes still, the horses breathe red, and your double steps out of the mirrors. She fights the way you do, one weapon at a time, and the arena turns into 4 short rounds on a moving floor. First, it's the knife. She closes fast and tries to parry anything you throw head on. Don't trade. Slip to the side and cut on her recovery. When she drops, she reappears with a handgun. Use the horses for cover. Move in close so she switches to a clumsy butt stroke and punish the wind-up. The third pass is the steel pipe. Short, mean combos that crumble if you keep your feet in fire as the swing finishes. Last comes the submachine gun. She'll pepper you from range if you let her, but crowding her shuts the spray down and turns it back into a melee you can control. The radio never really settles. Read her posture instead and answer the moment a weapon commits. The sequence always ends the same way. She collapses, bleeds out into the carousel boards, and stands again somewhere else until the fourth body finally stays down. The fight's a mirror held too close, your toolkit thrown back at you, your timing tested in a ring that keeps turning. When the last form fades, the ride winds down, and the path to the chapel opens. The same platform once hosted Sybil in the first game. Here, it's your own shadow that tries to stop you. The God, first appearance, Silent Hill 3, 2003. The chapel floor opens and the thing Claudia begged for drags itself into the lights. It's huge and undercooked, ribs showing through singed flesh, a head like a burnt idol that still remembers how to breathe fire. It doesn't roam, it owns the center and makes the room come to it. When it rises, heat rolls out first, then a long sweep of an arm that knocks you off balance if you're greedy about distance. The radio is useless here. Everything is close, so you watch the body instead. There's a slow inhale before the fire, shoulders hitching as the chest fills. That's your cue to move. Circle outside the arc, let the breath go past, and punish the mouth while it's open. Shotgun blasts land clean in that window. The handgun works if you keep your rhythm and don't stand still between bursts. When it plants both hands, expect a sudden lunge that tries to crowd you into the rail. Never back straight away. Cut across its front, reset, and make it turn. What you're fighting is the Colt's promise made literal. Heather forces the fetus out. Claudia swallows it and births this thing on the chapel stones. The arena never lies about what it is. Blackened God, heat haze over marble, attacks that feel like rituals performed with a body. When it finally slumps, the fire dies with it, and the church sounds like a building again instead of a furnace. Sniffer Dog, first appearance, Silent Hill 4, The Room, 2004. You start catching them in the subway and forest runs, low shapes nosing along the ground, then breaking into that crooked sprint the moment you move too fast. Up close, the muzzle is all gum and knives, and the tongue isn't a tongue so much as a long, stabbing tube that shakes while they feed. They travel in twos or more, circling carcasses and each other, and they sound wrong for dogs, snarls that come off like a big cat mixed with a ratty squeal. If you keep a walking pace, they'll pace with you. The second you bolt, everything in earshot lights up and the pack commits. In later passes through the building and apartment worlds, the purple, eyeless females react quicker and grab for your legs while the green males lunge high, turning a straight hallway into bad footing fast. The safe answer is calm and angle. Don't run a straight line. Drift wide, juke once, and make them miss before you swing or shoot. A planted steel pipe smack staggers one cleanly if you step in, strike, then close a beat before the next hit so it can't hop back. Handgun taps settle a chase without stirring the whole block. If they're busy feeding, you can walk past at the edge of the light and they won't break off. The game keeps the logic consistent. They punish panic, not presence. Long-time notes tie them back to Walter's world, his fear of dogs, that pet shop story, and the design sells it with those umbilical, blood-drinking tongues and the way the pack comes alive the instant you show fear. Gumhead, first appearance, Silent Hill 4, 2004. They start turning up in the building world and stick around for your return trips through the subway and forest. Ape-like bodies with rubbery faces, they move in sloppy packs, thumping down stairs and crowding doorways with a mix of hoots and wet breathing that the radio can't quite sort from the ambient hum. The first ones you meet will swagger in close with empty hands. Later, new types show up with pipes or even golf clubs, testing your space with short, ugly swings. When they get numbers, they flank without thinking. One steps into your lane while another cuts the angle at your hip. And suddenly, a simple haul turns into a bad trade. The safest answer is calm feet and short bursts. Keep walking speed. Juke once to make the lead miss. Then put 2 or 3 handgun shots into the chest before the next swing. If you're saving ammo, the steel pipe staggers a lone gum head cleanly as long as you don't plant in the middle of the pack. Guides call them out right where you meet them, first in the building world stairwells, then stacked in the subway. Second visit, concourse. Exactly the sort of busy, echoing rooms where their numbers matter most. There's a dark joke built into their drops. Beat one carrying sports gear, and it can leave you the same golf clubs it tried to crack you with, useful for a few hits before they snap. Out in the open, they'll even hop gaps between rooftops to keep pressure, but they're not clever once you refuse the straight line. Walk, don't run, make the first swing whiff, and answer only as long as it takes to open a lane. In ones and twos, they're noise. In fours, they become the room. Twin victim, first appearance, Silent Hill 4, 2004. Down in the water prison, the tear goes quiet and something with 2 long arms stands up in a doorway like it was sleeping there. 2 infant faces share one shroud, eyes closed as if the bodies forgot to wake, and the whole thing walks on its hands, palms slapping the concrete. It doesn't charge first. It points, a small, precise gesture, and whispers just loud enough to carry. Receiver, the word thin and breathy in the damp air. Get too close or swing first and it comes alive, darting forward with a reach that's longer than you judge, then skittering out of range to make you miss again. The radio never stops complaining on these floors, but the better tell is the sound of those hands. Flat, regular impacts that speed up when it decides you've made a mistake. Keep a walking pace, give it a miss, and answer on the turn. Short handgun bursts or a fast pipe combo will knock it over, and when it drops, it writhes and sobs like a child until you finish the job with a stomp. You'll meet more around the cell blocks and again on later returns. The same posture, the same point, the same whisper. Guides and bestiaries pin their debut to the prison, and note the close cousin called Bottom back in South Ashfield, another two-faced shape with a voice, making the twins the rare victims that don't haunt as ghosts at all, but walk as monsters in the places Walter left marked. Wall Man, first appearance, Silent Hill 4, The Room, 2004. The corridor breathes, then the plaster buckles. A torso pushes out of the wall to the waist, gray skin stretched tight, arms too long for the corridor, and the hands slam down hard enough to rattle the lights. It doesn't walk, it unfolds from the surface, holding there like a crooked statue that learned to move, then drops the palms again to crush whatever is under them. The sound gives it away a second before it shows. A dry scrape, then a deep exhale through teeth, as if the wall itself were tired of standing still. In the building world stairwells and the water prison rings, they pick choke points on purpose, blind turns, narrow bridges, and wait for you to step into range. Stand under them, and you're pinned, staggered again, before you can lift your hands. The safe path is never on the seam. Keep to the center, watch the plaster ahead for a ripple, and let the first slam miss. When the arms stick in the floor for a beat, slip past the wrists and don't look back. If you decide to fight, short, close, handgun bursts during that recovery will force a retreat. A steel pipe cracks the head cleanly if you commit to a single swing and move on. In the circular chamber deeper in the prison, there are many of them ringing the room, all slamming in rhythm while one stays alive. The real one throws a darker shadow at your feet. Kill that body and the rest fold back into stone. Everywhere else treat the walls like they're listening. If the corridor sighs, something in it is about to breathe. Hummer, first appearance, Silent Hill 4, 2004. You hear them first. A high, irritating buzz that cuts across the corridor hum. Then a black shape darts in and taps your shoulder like a thrown pebble. Hummers, moth bat things with needle snouts, show up in swarms and love open runs like the forest world ramps and catwalks. One doesn't do much. 3 can stun lock you while you're trying to clear a gate. The radio can't separate their sound from the room's hiss, so use your ears and pace. A steady walk keeps them at bay. Wild sprinting pulls the whole cloud onto you. The simplest answer is to swat one down and stomp before the others regroup. Handgun taps work, but a planted steel pipe swing is cleaner when they crowd your lane. There's a dedicated solution if you want quiet. The bug spray in apartment world, room 203. It blasts short, useless puffs at most things, but it wrecks Hummers. A burst drops them out of the air, so you can finish with a boot. Some guides still prefer the pipe to save an inventory slot, but if a hallway keeps filling with wings, the spray turns it off fast. Either way, don't chase. Let them dive. Swat the one that commits, and move on while the buzz fades behind you. Hummers appear practically everywhere in SH4. Treat the noise like weather, and you'll stop losing health to gnats. Toadstool, first appearance, Silent Hill 4, 2004. They show up where the air doesn't move, damp service corners in the water prison, hospital utility rooms, the darker stairwells of the building world. A clutch of fat, rust-brown fungi bulges from tile or a corpse's back. Nearby, a white stalk sprouts like new growth in plaster seams. They don't hunt. You do the damage by brushing them. A lazy sidestep is all it takes to save your shins. A careless stride turns the hall into a scrape that ticks your health while you're trying to watch something louder. The white ones are worse only because they keep growing if you leave them, filling a path you thought you could squeeze through on the return trip. When you have to clear the lane, 2 quick pipe swings or a couple of handgun taps pop the caps, and the room goes quiet again. Escorting Eileen makes them matter more. She'll step into a patch you ignored and make you pay for rushing. Treat them like wet floor signs. Notice, angle out, and keep walking. The game places them exactly where you're likely to run. Slowing down is the whole trick. Tremor, first appearance, Silent Hill 4, 2004. They cling to walls like fat leeches and leave gooey trails across concrete, red or blue, depending on the type. You start seeing them in the water prison and building world, then later along the apartment corridors on your return trips. Most of the time they're just there, pulsing on plaster, quivering near baseboards, until the moment one drops into your path and turns a clean line into a small problem. If you brush past or land a step on them, they burst, and the splash hurts more than you expect. The sound isn't loud, it's a wet little plop that you notice only after the radio has already been complaining for something bigger down the hall. Treat them like slick spots. Notice, adjust, and keep your pace. If one is blocking a door or a narrow stair, don't rush. Tap it off the wall with a quick pipe swing so it falls where you want it. Then stomp and move on, or just give it space and avoid the detonation altogether. Both blue and red tremors behave the same, small, slimy, and eager to pop if you give them contact. So the rule holds across variants. They're not a fight. They're the kind of hazard that punishes impatience, sprinkled exactly where you're likely to sprint. Keep your eyes on the floor, make one calm decision, and they go from threat to cleanup in a second. Patient, first appearance, Silent Hill 4, 2004. They're too tall for the hall and too calm for what their faces are doing. The gown hangs open, the skin looks poured on, and the arms swing a heavy blunt like someone's old pipe or club. You meet them first in the hospital world, and later again on the second trip through the apartment world, where they loiter outside room 302, as if they've been waiting for you to come back. The approach is slow until it isn't, a drag of feet, a turn that shows too much shoulder, then a sudden flurry of short, battering swings that chew your health if you freeze in a doorway. When you hit them, they bellow, and sometimes let out that ugly, bubbling burp the fan base always argues about. On stairs, they can even topple and slide with a sound you won't forget. Keep your pace measured, make the first swing miss, and answer with 2 or 3 handgun shots or a committed pipe crack before you step out of range again. Don't stand in front of their back. They love a surprise spin that steals your angle. They're not complicated. They're pressure in a narrow place, and they only become a problem when you rush. Bottom, first appearance, Silent Hill 4, 2004. On the second pass through South Ashfield Heights, something stands in a hallway like it grew out of the floor. Nude, lumpy, with a second face dangling from its abdomen, it doesn't walk on feet at all. It stands on its hands, palms flat, head hanging, and points. The whisper reaches you before the radio does. A thin, breathy receiver, repeated like a cue you are supposed to follow. If you keep your distance, it keeps pointing. Crowd it or swing first, and it snaps into motion, scuttling forward faster than you judge and hammering you at close range. The sound to trust is the slap of hands on concrete. When that rhythm quickens, it has decided you're too close. The safe answer is space and one clean decision. Don't give it a straight line from a doorway. Let it miss its first rush, then step past the shoulder and put short handgun bursts into the torso, or use a single planted pipe crack before you move again. If you hesitate, it resets and points, drawing you back into the same bad angle. In practice, they act like meaner cousins of the twin victims. Same stance on the hands, same receiver whisper, but they're quicker and more tenacious. And they only show up here in the apartment return, as if the building saved something special for when you thought you knew the halls. When it finally drops, the whisper cuts off mid-breath, and the corridor sounds like itself again. Wheelchair, first appearance, Silent Hill 4, 2004. You hear it before you see it, A distant squeak that turns into a hard, uneven rattle. Then a metal frame barrels out of a side hall like it slipped its brakes. In the hospital world, the chairs move on their own, swinging wide in doorways and ramming down the corridor with enough force to knock you sideways. They don't stalk or circle. They run the length of any straight they can find, bounce off a wall, pivot, and come again. The radio is useless here. There's nothing alive to key on. So you read the sound: squeak, rattle, impact, silence, then the turn. You can't kill them. Bullets waste time and candles don't matter. The safe answer is angles and timing. Keep a walking pace. Hug the inside of a curve and step across their line at the last second so the frame slides past and smashes into whatever's behind you. If one parks across a doorway, a single, planted pipe swing will shove it just enough to open the lane. Don't stand there trading hits or it will pin you in place. Escorting Eileen makes them worse. She fixates on them and takes ugly damage. So give these halls your patience and her space. The game places them exactly where you want to sprint. Slow down, listen for the squeak coming back, and take the corner like you've got brakes, even if the chair doesn't. Ghosts. First appearance, Silent Hill 4, 2004. They don't walk in from the end of the hall. They push out of the walls, leaving wet smears as the plaster bulges around a face you recognize from a file or a news clipping. Then the temperature of the room changes and your health starts to drain just for being nearby. Ghosts in this game aren't puzzles you solve or enemies you kill. They haunt. They track, hover, and turn an ordinary corridor into a place you can't stand still. The radio can't warn you in time because distance barely matters. What matters is proximity to the aura that eats at you whenever they close. Some carry the tools they died with, and some have a special shove that knocks you off your feet when you try to muscle past. One of them, swollen and waterlogged, clutches a key you need and will only let the run continue after you've forced him still. Your tools are rules, not damage. Holy candles clear space and purge hauntings. Saint medallions blunt the aura until they crack. A silver bullet will knock a spirit out for minutes, but there are almost none to spare. The one clean, permanent answer in the field is the sword of obedience. Drop a ghost to the floor, drive the blade through it, and that one stays pinned where you left it, harmless unless you pull the sword back out. The system teaches restraint. Pick the spots that stay safe when you return. Save a sword for the worst places and for the ghost who actually blocks the route. Later, when Eileen is badly hurt or possessed, she picks up a similar aura. Stand too close while she's shaking, and it will drain you the way a ghost does. A reminder that Walter's world doesn't just raise the dead, it soaks into the living. Greedy Worm, first appearance, Silent Hill 4, 2004. You spot it where walls don't stay walls. Subway platforms with broken tile, service tunnels with fresh cracks, the places in Walter's worlds that sound hollow when you walk. The head pushes out first, slick and pale, mouth like a ring of teeth built to grind through concrete. It doesn't hunt you so much as ignore you, chewing a path from one room to the next. The radio barely helps because it isn't looking. You hear it instead, wet scraping, a low shove through plaster, a breath that seems to come from inside the wall. Trying to fight it is mostly noise. It won't die, and it won't defend itself. If you fire, it recoils and slides back, then resumes eating somewhere else. The safest move is the simple one. Keep your line, slip past when it withdraws, and don't waste ammo trying to end something the game never lets you end. Guides and bestiaries are blunt about it. The greedy worm, appears multiple times across the otherworld areas, blocks or opens routes by burrowing, and cannot be killed. Treat it like moving architecture rather than an enemy, and the scraping fades behind you as the next hole opens. The One Truth. First appearance. Silent Hill 4, 2004. Deep in the water prison, the stairs spill you into a round chamber ringed with human shapes pressed into the walls. They look like wall men, 20 of them at least, each craning from the stone to smash their palms down in a rhythm that makes the floor jump. You can swing at any face you like, and the room howls back, but only one of them is real. The tell isn't a roar or a special animation, it's the shadow on the floor. Watch your boots as you move. One figure throws a darker, truer shadow than the others. That's the body you hurt. Hit that one, and they all recoil at once, as if the entire ring shares a single spine. It's a fight about patience. If you plant under a fake, the hands will stutter you in place until you bleed out. Keep to the center, circle until you've found the right shadow, and then commit to short, controlled bursts. 3 quick handgun shots, or a clean steel pipe crack, before sliding away from the next slam. Ranged is safer, but melee works if you only step in during the beat when the palms stick to the floor. When the real one buckles for good, the rest fold back into the walls and the chamber exhales. A ladder you couldn't trust a minute ago suddenly looks like the only honest thing in the room. Walter Sullivan, first appearance, Silent Hill 4, 2004. The last room is a shrine to a murder you've been walking through all game. Eileen starts across a moving platform toward a grinding machine, and the floor opens on the thing Walter made to replace a mother, his true body lashed into the chamber. Adult Walter circles with pistols, calm as a foreman, while the radio howls like it finally understands what you're standing in. The first step isn't bullets, it's ritual. Use the umbilical cord on the great body, the way the Crimson Tome instructs. Only then do the spears of the Holy Mother reveal themselves on the surrounding statues. 8 spears for the final 8 murders. Pull them, cross the floor, and drive each one into the giant's neck. Walter staggers every time a spear lands. When all 8 are in, he stops being an idea and turns into a man you can finish. Keep Eileen alive while you work. The path she walks is as dangerous as any enemy, and her condition from earlier determines how quickly the machine takes her. If she reaches it, the ending sours no matter what you do. Once the spears are set, turn to Walter and end it. Charged swings from an axe or pick will chew through him cleanly, and some routes save a revolver's last rounds to keep pressure while he resets. Don't waste time on the giant after the 8th spear. The body is already bound. When Walter finally drops, the chamber loses its voice. Eileen stops walking, and room 302 feels like a place again, instead of a wound the building was trying to keep open. Nurse, Silent Hill Origins 2007. Alchemilla's corridors breathe before you see her. Rubber soles on tile. A small, shaky quiver that doesn't sound like walking so much as shivering in place. When your beam hits, the face isn't a face at all, just stretched mask and seams where a mouth should be. She lifts a syringe as if it were a scalpel and comes forward in short grabs, trying to pin you against a door that won't open. 1 is manageable. 2 move like they practice crowding a threshold. The radio never settles in these halls, so use the room, not the hiss. Take a half step back to make the grab miss. Answer with quick strikes and keep your feet. There's an even quieter answer the game rewards. Kill the flashlight and slide by. These nurses key on light. In the dark, they'll keep quivering toward where you were, and let you pass with only a brush of fabric. They turn up again in Cedar Grove Sanitarium. Same posture, same reach, the same insistence that your space is smaller than you thought. Guides are blunt about them, slow, easily staggered, armed with syringes, dangerous only when you let two stand shoulder to shoulder in a doorway. Straight Jacket, first appearance, Silent Hill, Origins, 2007. You meet them as soon as the streets stop pretending to be empty. Bodies bound in their own skin, heads pushing at a seam, feet dragging until they decide to sprint. The radio wakes up, then a wet wheeze and rubbery creak fill the corridor before the shape resolves. Out in town they shamble until you get close. In Alchemilla and Cedar Grove, they're already working the halls, turning doorways into bad bets with sudden grapples. Up close they jump and wrap their legs around your waist, pinning you for the real damage. An acid ball spewed straight into your face if you don't break free. At range they spit the same bile in fast, accurate shots. Keep your pace measured and your angles wide. If one commits to the grab, backstep and fire into the torso as it lands. If it hangs at mid-range, strafe until the chest opens and answer with quick handgun bursts. They stagger cleanly when you hit as the body bows. Outdoors, don't linger. These things can keep spawning down the block and turn a quiet street into a swarm if you stand your ground. One shows up as a semi-boss near the end of Alchemilla, right before Travis gets his first Floros piece. The model is the same, just meaner positioning, and a room that punishes straight lines. Everywhere else, they're common enough to be the town's background noise. Proof that Origins likes to pressure you with numbers as much as with anything clever. Carrion, first appearance, Silent Hill, Origins, 2007. Out on the street, something the size of a small bull heaves itself around a corner, and the pavement starts to shake. The body is pale and thick with hanging flesh. A long back that hunches before it moves. It doesn't bother with feints. When it commits, it launches. A full body leap that slams down hard enough to skid you across the asphalt if you mistime your step. You hear it coming as a heavy scrape and a breath that sounds like someone pushing a mattress across the floor. The radio goes harsh and stays that way because distance barely helps when the thing can close a half block in one hop. Treat open streets like alleys. Keep an angle. Never run straight away and punish the recovery the moment it lands. Indoors, the worst place to meet one is a long haul. Outdoors, it owns any stretch of road wide enough to let it build speed. After you first beat it as a boss in the Artaud Theater, smaller encounters show up later around Riverside and other maps, loud enough that you learn to listen for far-off thuds and rattling streetlights before the shape appears. The game's bestiaries and guides are blunt about its pattern. Leaping body slam, unpredictable approach, serious damage if you freeze. The Butcher, first appearance, Silent Hill, Origins, 2007. You catch him in glimpses before the game makes you share a room. A hulking figure in a blood-caked apron, half the head plated in metal, the other half a flat mask of skin that barely reads as a face. The noise is the earliest tell, steel shrieking along tile as a giant cleaver drags, then lifts. He moves with a butcher's calm, not a monster's twitch, crossing a doorway to finish something on a table, and only turning when you refuse to leave. He stalks through the town and shows up where meat and memory overlap. First at the butcher shop, later at the Riverside Motel, and the sightlines are always too tight for comfort. When the room finally locks and the fight is yours, he advances in steady steps and chops hard, closing space faster. than his size suggests. Sprinting in circles gets you clipped. The safer rhythm is short angles and controlled fire. A planted shotgun blast on his commitment will buy space. Thrown weapons land from mid-range if you don't want to stand your ground. The radio never quiets around him because he doesn't give you distance. He keeps the room his size until you make him miss. Canon sources name the weapon the Great Cleaver, stress that he kills other monsters as he goes, and place his encounters specifically at the butcher's and the motel. Remnant, first appearance. Silent Hill, Origins, 2007. You only meet them in Cedar Grove Sanitarium, where the halls already feel like they remember who they kept. In the dark, they read as shadow people, a floating human outline that seems to detach from the floor and drift toward you. Put light on them, and the trick reverses. A bloody restraint harness hangs in midair, casting a human-shaped shadow on the wall behind it. The moment your beam hits, the restraint lunges in quick overhead swings, heavy enough that 2 clean hits can strip your health in a corridor meant for walking, not fighting. The radio is messy here, but the sound they make cuts through it, a sharp, metallic screech right before they close. The safe answer is to kill the flashlight and keep moving. Without light, they're easier to slide past, and they'll often drift by if you hold your pace and don't clip a shoulder. If you decide to fight, keep range and tag them from afar. Short handgun bursts drop them quickly, and remember that thrown heavy objects can floor one in a single hit. When a remnant finally dies, it lets out a piercing cry, and the shadow collapses into a crumpled black mass that proves it was never just a trick of light. Ariel, first appearance, Silent Hill, Origins, 2007. You find them in the Artaud Theater, hanging in rows above the stage like props that never got struck. They look like porcelain ballerinas until the strings tense and the bodies drop to choke you, hands where feet should be, gripping their own cords while the other pair claws at your throat. The sound is a thin creak from the rafters, then the rattle of painted joints tapping each other as they sway. If you knock one down, it doesn't break. It stands on its hands and comes at you kicking, brittle but quick, crowding the wings and the catwalk corners where your flashlight throws more shadow than help. They're fragile alone and mean in numbers, a hazard made worse by cramped stage lanes and sandbag ropes underfoot. Guides pin them squarely to Artaud and call out how easily they stun with a clean hit. Light health, awkward angles, and a habit of turning a safe aisle into a snare the moment you look up. Caliban, first appearance. Silent Hill, Origins, 2007. It breaks a stage in the Artaud Theater, a huge contorted body that moves on 4 limbs the wrong way around. The hind legs are really arms, the spine is curled backward, and the head hangs between the front limbs like the neck forgot which direction to grow. It's slow until it isn't. The warning is the sway. The torso rocks back. There's a heavy scrape, and then it lunges in a straight line, or rears, to slam the ground hard enough to take your feet out if you're greedy with distance. Keep your circle wide and punish only when it commits. Shotgun bursts during the rise are honest work, and short, timed hits behind its bulk are safe while it resets. After the theater, it doesn't disappear. You'll see Calibans again on the streets, inside the Riverside Motel, and in nowhere, blocking lanes like moving architecture you have to route around. The design is the theater's own nightmare. A program on site describes a costume that fused a native buffalo spirit with imagery from the local Valtiel cult, exactly the shape you're fighting, and a later audio flashback even drops Caliban's speech from The Tempest, The game's notes also spell out its simple kit, a devastating ground pound, and that telltale lunge once the body pulls back. Guides underline the same answer you feel on the floor: firearms to the chest during its commitment, or quick melee from the rear if you've bought yourself the angle and a second to work.